It is 4 o'clock.
Oh, right now.
Okay. All right, we're going to call the Board of Public Works meeting to order on June 16th, 2022. Ms. Foto, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, absolutely. Mayor Donches?
Here?
Commissioner Moriarty?
Here.
Commissioner Shea?
Here.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Here.
Commissioner Lemon?
Here.
Great, thank you. So we have Alderman O'Brien, our liaison. I don't see any other members of the Board of Aldermen here. First motion, of course, is to approve the agenda. Commissioner Moriarty.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have the approval of the minutes. Commissioner Shea.
The motion is to approve the minutes of the Board of Public Works meeting May 25, 2022.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We next have public comment. Is there any member of the public who wishes to address the Board of Public Works? Please come up to the microphone up here where the podium is.
Right now?
Yeah, right now. Give your name and address. And you have 3 minutes. Each person.
Hello, my name is Thomas O'Brien. We live at 6 Midhurst Road, and I'd like to ask for accommodations because of a medical procedure. There's no way I can get through this note.
Pardon?
Could she read my note? I can't.
Yeah, you want to read his statement?
For a reason, yes.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
he's having
fine.
trouble with his voice.
Fine.
Let me know when I can. my
Right
name
now,
is-
right
my-
now. Just go ahead.
Okay.
I suppose technically we would need, we need your name and address as well, but
Okay.
we get that
I'll
you're,
I'll
all
also be making the statement as well.
right.
Denise Musioli, 6 Midhurst.
This is Thomas's statement. I abut Roby Park. Like most abutters, I was shocked and disgusted to learn about the 18-hole disc golf course. I oppose this project for so many reasons, but we'll talk about parking and trash. The abutters have a valid concern, which is available parking that currently can only support what Roby Park was meant to be, a small neighborhood park and playground. We already have a wide variety of free outdoor activities at Roby. In addition, we already have 9 holes of disc golf that are essentially abandoned, but could easily be expanded and revived. No need to destroy forest trails, habitats, and wetlands. He said at Greeley Park, sorry. Last summer, Alderman Skip Cleaver, Mayor Donches, the National Police Department were made aware of safety hazards related to overflow parking. Nothing was done to alleviate the hazards. People entering and exiting the school, church, and condo complexes along Spitbrook Road from Roby Park to just shy of the Spitbrook Road Fire Station during weekend events at Roby can't see oncoming cars, and oncoming cars can't see them when event goers park on both sides of the very busy Spitbrook Road. Tickets were given out this weekend. You literally have to inch by inch, and pray someone doesn't T-bone you. This photo represents an example. There are no lights at the entrance of any of the condos, the church, or the school. There have been many accidents at the Oak Hill intersection, and with the speed of the cars averaging 45 to 50 miles per hour, I'm sorry, his words were 45 miles per hour, posted 25, there could be a fatality. How is a fire engine going to get to Sky Meadow for a house fire if cars are parked on both sides of the street and cars are in both travel lanes? There is no place for people to go to make room for the emergency vehicles. By adding a full schedule now of professional Frisbee tournaments or disc golf tournament, sorry, his word was Frisbee tournaments, on top of all the other activities at Roby, I'm anxious to obtain a written plan. He's anxious to obtain a written plan. The city will address overflow parking. Once a fatality happens, it will be too late. Disc golf tournaments can have 100 to 600 or more players, not including spectators or support staff. This 18-hole course designed by a professional isn't suitable for a small neighborhood park. Parking at Roby is a problem that the city needs to address now. He suggests the following measures and have event organizations foot the bill. Put a traffic light at Oak Hill and Spitbrook. No parking allowed in Spitbrook as it puts pedestrians crossing and bicycling bicyclists at unnecessary risk of severe injury or death. Police traffic detail at large events paid for
All
by
right,
the event.
so you have
sponsors.
30 seconds left.
No parking signs erected on both sides of Pipbrook Road. Move the golf disc to another location that will allow for sufficient parking. He's asking all of you to approve his request for the mayor to call a special meeting and to appoint a Roby Park Advisory Committee to address this project in full. Did you show the picture?
Yes.
That's his statement.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now, do you have your own?
I do.
Okay. Now, just for clarity, just give your name and address before you
Sure.
start.
Sure, okay. Let me just grab, to get a breath because I had to read that fast. Denise Musioli, 6 Midhurst Road, longtime resident of Nashua, been using Roby Park Trail since 1993. I take objection at many, many things surrounding this project. One being we have a professional disc golf player come into our city and tell us that Roby Park is basically useless. That's not true at all. Roby Park isn't useless. It's used by dog walkers. The school across the street brings its classes. It's used by people wanting to get into nature, relax by the brook and so forth. I'm very concerned about the way this whole thing went through. I don't see any, the state of New Hampshire did not have any permit application for wetlands, to interfere with wetlands or disrupt wetlands. Nobody filed anything with the state of New Hampshire because I checked. I filed my own complaint on April 29th, okay? As far as I know, they're still investigating this. What I saw was down trees and all of the mud that's accompanying when you cut a tree and you're trying to pull out the stump, that was all across the brook. And you can see where that was because there's fresh foliage here, and then you can see the mud that has interfered with the critical wetlands. The Nashua Conservation Committee said that they had concern with Roby, the cutting of trees at Roby. I think it was Mr. Sullivan said he was contacted by Commissioner Crook, I hope that's his name, about these critical wetlands. So, you know, you do a project like that, you have to apply for a permit. I don't know if you didn't apply for a permit because you forgot to, you didn't think you needed it, or it was a strategic move. Because rest assured, if I had seen a site variance posted on that property, there would be mounting opposition immediately. Immediately. This course is not safe to have on trails with elderly people that can't hear. There's dogs walking, classes walking. A disc can fly anywhere from 40 miles an hour to 80 miles an hour up to 400 feet. I don't think a 10-year-old kid's gonna do that, but when you're having professionals using the course and professional level people, you're gonna have an issue. Use at your own risk, it's not gonna work. You will be sued.
All right, so there's the 30 seconds.
You will be sued. You're cutting down more than 125 trees that I can see so far. You're interfering with a diverse wildlife habitat. I think you guys had, I think when this was presented to you, you had the wool pulled over your eyes. I really do. We've gotten no communication from anybody other than three or four aldermen have given us comments. You can't, I mean, we're constituents. Don't we have a right to know what's going on? Time?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, any other members of the public wish to address the board? All right, we'll go on to item Roman numeral 5, Board of Aldermen referral. Commissioner Shoneman.
I recommend a positive referral authorizing the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed the amount of $2,450,000 for Walnut Street Oval Intersection Project and West Pearl Street Streetscaping.
All right, thank you. So the motion is to make a positive recommendation on this. We have Mr. Cummings and also Mr. Hudson who can address it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development, and I'm here before you this evening to ask for your favorable recommendation back to the Board of Aldermen on R-22-038. It is a bond authorization piece of legislation, and as noted, it would authorize two projects, one project being the squaring off of the Walnut Street Oval, and then coupled with that, it would be the streetscaping of West Pearl Street. The reason why we're asking for this money is the squaring off of the Walnut Street Oval project has been a long time coming. It has been in the state plan for many years, and it has started to rise to the top, but in addition to that, we got a federal commitment for the project recently, and with that happening, it made sense to pair the two projects together with the West Pearl Street Streetscaping, which is a separate initiative that is 100% designed, but the construction funding is necessary to proceed. And so with the state's $2 million, it seemed advantageous to move forward now with the two projects. With that being said, the Walnut Street squaring off of the Oval initiative is just starting. That project still needs to be designed. That will take a year or so to happen, and then we would expect construction to happen in the following years. As I noted, the West Pearl Street streetscaping actually has been designed. There's a dedicated webpage to this project on the city's website. We've had community outreach meetings. We did a site tour, and in fact, the infrastructure committee, that's the entity that has jurisdiction over this, approved the preliminary design back in, I want to say, mid to late winter of this year, January, February timeframe. And so we're now at a point of needing to proceed to construction. So the projects have been in the capital improvement plan and have been favorably recommended, and does not affect the capital debt service plan because it can be, these projects were planned on and can be accommodated. I'll leave my comments there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Questions or comments from the commissioners? Commissioner Schoeneman.
It would be nice to see the design given to us in our packet, so we know what we're voting on, what we're approving. Also, the breakdown of the funding package. We don't know what we're shelling out almost $2 million for. You know, there's nothing here. What is streetscaping exactly?
So it's in your, so if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
So the legislation's broken down, the two projects for a total of $2.45 million. The Walnut Street scaping would be $555,000, and the West Pearl Street streetscaping would be, just under $1.9 million. And that would be coupled with $2 million that would be coming from the state to do the both projects in its entirety. As I noted, there's a webpage dedicated to this project, to the West Pearl Street streetscaping project, which has the design. If you were to go there, you could see the design that has been approved by the infrastructure committee. That webpage has been on the city's website since January or so. I didn't bring it with me. I mean, you could pull it up here if you'd like, but I didn't have it. This was the legislation that was filed with the Board of Aldermen.
Okay, so we're going to approve this based on not knowing what the design is, not being given any information about how the $2 million is going to be spent.
You're not approving anything. You're just making a recommendation to the Board of Aldermen.
Okay, but if we want to make a positive recommendation, it should be with a conscience that says, okay, yeah, this is a good plan. But we don't have a plan. We weren't given anything.
Okay.
But apparently that's not relevant, so.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes, I kind of agree in essence what Commissioner Schoeneman is saying, and I find that perhaps maybe it was an oversight, I do not know. But this has been vetted by the Committee of Infrastructure at length. And the Committee of Infrastructure kind of gives it unofficial approval. But to go through the steps to the next phase, I think we need the recommendation of this particular board. And looking at the downtown and everything, yes, there's certain people out there that say, we pay too much attention to the downtown, but this isn't the case. The whole downtown at large is a piece of a puzzle. And we put the little pieces together, and this particular project is part of the pieces to enhance. And it goes along with the Performing Arts Center, and it will make, the downtown area much better futuristically. So therefore, it would be as chairman of infrastructure and also as your liaison, if you were to give a formal approval to this, it'd be my pleasure to reintroduce it to the Board of Aldermen and to, have them approve it for final passage. But like I say, it did go before the Committee of Infrastructure, and it was extremely well received.
Would it be possible to perhaps pull up the plan on the
Happy to.
website?
Yeah, happy.
Director Cummings, and show the Board of Public Works?
Could I sit where you are for 10 seconds?
You absolutely can.
So here on your website is the West Pearl Street Streetscaping project. Here's just a general condition. I'm gonna bring this down a little bit so people can see it. So you can kind of see the general condition of West Pearl Street, so you can get an understanding of what's out there. Then there was a presentation done in October of 2021. There was site walks done, and then the presentation I referenced that was approved by the Infrastructure Committee was on January 26th of 2022. And as you can see, the design here as laid out. So the mission is to enhance the value of the city's creative and economic life by engaging artistic, educational, commercial neighbors through excellent design practices and programs. The vision to create a distance of dynamic and safe urban destination for locals, tourists, patrons, and businesses alike. The values that drove this was collaboration, education, community, inclusion, equity, and innovation. There's project goals of greening of the street experience, enhancing pedestrian and vehicular safety, building ADA compliant street, and creating a destination. The investments were planting and soil, sidewalk, pavements, curbing, pole lighting, asphalt roadway pavement markings, furnishings, irrigation, and creating some sort of branding for the streetscape. We're talking about from Main to Walnut Street, which has Elm Street running at the 50-yard line, right here. And we'd be looking to add some dynamic features. These are just some visual aids to help show you essentially what we're talking about.
Is that a rendering of what it's actually going to look like? That picture kind of went by quickly. That's a different...
Correct. That is not a rendering. What it is something that you could suggest would be inspirational.
Okay.
It's something to give you an understanding as to what we're striving toward.
Thank you.
One of the goals of the project would be, if you note that as you make Elm Street here, as my cursor shows, if you ever try to make a left, it's pretty tough due to site distances, so we'll be looking to make that type of correction. We're also going to be designing the street so you can reverse, so if ever decided by the city, and so you could have it happen that the street would flow in another direction. But as it notes, it currently flows from Main Street to the oval. Why it makes sense to connect up the two projects is you got the oval right here that's gonna need to be squared off. It has been a long time goal of this city, as I understand it, to do the reversal of West Pearl Street. So as we're gonna be doing the squaring off of the oval and making the improvements right here, you could do the streetscaping changes as well, which would allow for the next iteration of this phased approach of reversing West Pearl Street. Why is that as important? Is because that is an impediment right now for the Broad Street Parkway, or now the Veterans Memorial Parkway, where it ends or terminates at Central Street. It leaves you unconnected to the full vision of that Parkway project, which was to bring people to Main Street. Once you have this reversal occur and this intersection squared off and the streetscaping to occur, you'd be able to have that vision completely realized. Here's just some other elements about the existing condition. Here's a cross view that would just show you what we would be looking to try to, of what we currently have to work with as an existing condition. Then we're talking about, again, streetscaping enhancements, like public art opportunities in certain areas. Again, to help just kind of create a brand, maybe doing some lighting fixtures at the either end and some signage, again, just to kind of help provide some identity for West Pearl Street. Oftentimes we hear about the idea that the city has only focused on Main Street itself, and the side streets are sometimes neglected. I believe that this is a start to start looking at some of the side streets as well, West Pearl Street, Factory Street, Temple Street, and so on, as we continue on to make improvements. And here's just some inspirational designs as to what the construction documents would produce for you. And that is the end of the, oh, nope, sorry. I have my cross sections here. So this is what would be built, I believe, right here, to just kind of show you the additional pedestrian usage that could occur, the adding of some street trees, and the such. Examples of some street trees that would be used. Some possible seating options, some lighting options, some bike infrastructure, public art opportunities. We put some in that would be from the city as examples. We identified where those opportunities could be. This is the signage we talked about, potentially for branding. And that's pretty much the slide deck right there. Would you like me to leave this up?
Commissioner Shea.
Could you go back up to the flow of traffic, one with the red arrows?
Sure.
Thank you. So that is the direction of West Pearl Street as it is now, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And once Walnut is squared off, that direction would be reversed?
That would be a separate action that could occur, but at least with the streetscaping that occurred, if you so chose, you would be one step closer to be able to do it.
And as far as that concept goes, the reversal versus two-way traffic, to what extent has that idea been explored?
I'm sorry, say that again?
So as far as the reversal of traffic, so
Mhm.
so the reversal of traffic, there's openness to that if we lay it out like this. Has the alternative of having two-way traffic been discussed, and are there advantages or disadvantages to that?
So this design could accommodate two-way flow if so desired.
Okay.
Or you could, if so chose, reverse the direction and have it 2 lanes.
Yeah, I very much like the idea, as you know, of the reversal. I believe that squaring off Walnut and being able to come onto West Pearl Street and take a nice, clean right-hand turn onto Elm for our city's largest parking garage, at least municipal parking garage anyway. I think that that's great. It makes parking more intuitive, and it makes the flow into downtown neat and clean.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, the one thing I want to be abundantly clear on is this would provide us the opportunity to move in that direction. Again, I want to be clear, that doesn't mean that we would do that with this project. There's a second element that needs to be explored, and that is when you reverse, and assuming you reverse one way, West Pearl Street, additional study is going to be necessary to make sure we can accommodate that change to occur without having to potentially do something on the east side of Main Street, either reversing East Pearl Street.
Can you start that over? Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm getting
Yep.
spatially lost.
So assuming that we were to reverse West Pearl Street in its entirety and not be two-way flow, but it's one direction now, all the way to Main Street, you'd then need to potentially, and this is what needs additional study, look at reversing East Pearl Street potentially, or if it can be accommodated, leaving East Pearl Street as is. But that would, but depending on what happens, then you'd also may potentially need to do something with Temple Street and how the traffic flows onto Temple Street. So that additional study would need to occur. There's been some preliminary study done by VHB on this, but we would need to further investigate that and make sure everyone had a comfort level before we actually made the reversal happen. But you can't even do the reversal with the current infrastructure that's in place.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schoeneman.
Did you suggest that there's enough room in this plan to make two-way traffic on West Pearl Street?
Yes, my understanding is you'd be able to do 2 ways.
You'd have to take out parking on both sides, right?
There would be there is, in this plan does suggest a loss of parking. It's
extremely narrow.
It would be 37 stalls of parking is what this plan would accommodate.
If it was reversed or if it was two-way? Or just as is?
Just as is, which, as is.
Correct. So 37 spaces. But if you were suggesting two-way traffic on West Pearl, there's no way you're going to fit 2 lanes of traffic in opposing directions and parking on that little street without significantly widening the street. Maybe Mr. Hudson can chime in there. It doesn't seem possible. But maybe that's not an issue to discuss right now.
Well, to elaborate on that, you're correct. You would lose a lot of parking in a two-way configuration. And there's been a lot of neighborhood outreach on this to the businesses and residents of Pearl. They do not wish to see a loss of parking, I think is a fair statement. And therefore, it's extremely unlikely. The Board of Aldermen, makes its own decisions, but it's extremely unlikely that the two-way plan would be adopted because of the concerns you've expressed. So, in reality, the choice would be leave the one-way flow the way it is or reverse it. There is the possibility, I think, but Mr. Tom Cummings, you could do two-way traffic for one block, that being between Elm and Main, without disrupting parking too much, because it's wider in there. But generally speaking, certainly west of Elm Street, two-way traffic would create a very significant loss of parking. And I think it's fair to say that the businesses and others would very much like to see the reversal, but they don't particularly like the two-way approach. The businesses here really like in general, they really like the idea of reverse, of creating at least, an eastbound traffic flow, because it would enable someone to drive from the Broad Street Parkway through a squared off oval directly to Pearl Street without having to, go all the way around and as it is currently configured. Commissioner Shea.
For source of funds, is the West Pearl Street area located within the tax increment finance district?
It is.
Okay, and would any of those funds be utilized for this project?
The legislation reads right now would be just, it would not be a TIF project, if that's what you're asking.
And to what extent has that been considered, using the TIF? Because I see the building being constructed, which I'm very excited to see. Congratulations on that, by the way. I know that that's been a long process and a big dream for the neighborhood and key to the Performing Arts Center, so good job. And so I'll go back to my question.
Yeah.
To what extent has that been evaluated as an option for funding for this project?
So I had not really evaluated it in any great detail, because it was very clear when the TIF was created for a few years back for this area, there was two expenses that were, envisioned for using that money. And that was for the Assist the Performing Arts Center, and it was for the construction of the public parking garage, which would be on the first floor of the apartment building that you're referencing right now. Mm-hmm. It was very clear during those discussions that we would not use TIF funds other than for those two specific purposes. And so I did not even entertain the idea of looking at whether the TIF could support the streetscaping project.
In a follow-up, do we have an idea at this rate of the cash flow on the TIF and the costs for those two items?
I could do it off the top of my head. I would have to
ballpark it. That's fine.
Yeah, I would have to ballpark it. So right now it's not generating anything. The TIF is not generating anything right now, but we anticipate it will start generating money next year, and it will only continue to increase to, conservatively somewhere around $600,000. And then the two expenses, the public parking garage, if you will, the first floor parking infrastructure is $2.5 million, and the Performing Arts Center was $5 million. So you'd have something in the order of magnitude of $7.5 million that would need to be accommodated off of that $600,000. I don't know if the debt service could be supported for additional spending. If that's the direction that you and others would like to go, that's the analysis that would need to occur. We would need to be able to support essentially $2 million additional money out of that TIF. And I can absolutely run and do that exercise. Yep. I was trying to stay very true to the spirit of what was said a couple of years ago, which was we would, only use the School Street TIF for those two very specific projects.
Thank you. And what do you know in ballpark? I know that interest rates are wild right now, right? So do you know roughly what we're paying? And we do 20-year bonds?
Majority of the time, yeah.
And do you know roughly what the debt service, the percentage on those is?
The interest on,
Yeah.
on which one? On the Performing Arts Center?
I suppose the Performing Arts Center is going to be,
1.6%.
so that's going to be a very favorable interest rate.
Yeah.
Do we have a projection on the interest rate for the parking garage project? And has that been bonded already?
It has not been bonded yet.
Okay.
It's gonna be more ballpark, 3%. You know,
3%.
interest rates have gone up,
That's
maybe
still-
high twos, but of course,
Yeah.
interest rates are changing
Yeah. I think
weekly.
I think a 30-year mortgage now is like 6.2% or something bananas like that.
I mean, we typically borrow at very favorable rates because of the bond rating.
So not including interest, roughly between those two expenses, it's like $375,000 a year. And then you have the interest on top of that. I think there's a fair likelihood that there may be additional capacity for the TIF. I would, for me personally, I would like to see us look at that and see if that is something that we might be able to leverage for this project, because it does serve the district. And it would also leave us with capacity for other projects, schools and what have you.
So the way the current School Street TIF is set up is the excess funds were to be, the excess funds above and beyond the debt service needing to pay for those two eligible projects would be transferred to the general fund. So I'm just letting you know that, so it's not like that additional money stays segregated and isn't used for the benefit of the general fund. So we would have to change that legislation and you know, work towards that, but something we could explore, sure.
Thank you.
Commissioner Moriarty.
I just wanted to say, I think we're late to the game here, this board. I think we should have been involved sooner. I mean, we do have jurisdiction over sidewalks. We have jurisdiction over the streets according to the city charter. I know there's an RSA that gives Baldwin some authority, but we're in this together and we're late to the game here. So I'm disappointed by that. I like the project. I'm for the project, but I'm disappointed that, again, this board is left out. To that matter, I just wanted to know, the employees of the Division of Public Works, are they going to be used, or is this all subcontracted out? Because if they're going to be used, we need to know to what extent are the employees going to be used.
You're referring to the construction?
All of it, the whole project.
So the construction would be subcontracted out. But the design element has been all run through the engineering department.
Okay, so the project itself then is going to be all subcontracted out. So we're not going to be using any city employees. So that's what
Not-
this board
not
needs
for
to
the
know.
construction.
We have
Not
a
for the,
budget.
not for the construction.
Well, for what then?
Well, you have engineering oversight.
So just the engineers would be used.
Yeah. Yeah, professional staff, yeah.
Just so this board is clear, because again, we're involved with the budget of this division. And we need to know, you know, where the employees are going to be being used, and basically, I think we just should have been brought up to speed on it, that's all.
Commissioner Shea.
I would generally agree with Commissioner Moriarty's sentiment. The Board of Public Works shall have cognizance, direction, and full control of the construction, alteration, cleaning, watering, and repair of streets, highways, bridges, and sidewalks. I am surprised that the process and the approval and the way that this has been presented to us for referral has been conducted the way that it has. And I really do believe that we are entitled by virtue of this board and the language that establishes it to not just be positively recommending, but approving and being a part of the process. We haven't been a part of the process, at least not during my time here. Can you speak to that, Mayor?
Well, you know, I think you have a point that you should have been briefed on this earlier, but remember, all we're doing now is seeking authorization for funding. The design is not approved. There is no detailed design. So that would, when prepared, come here. So all we're doing now is there's kind of a concept, and we're seeking, and there's not even, I mean, you see some level of design. There's no construction drawings, right? Oh, there are? Oh, sorry. Well, on the Walnut Oval, there's nothing. No design, no construction drawings. There is more detail on West Pearl, and I agree, we should have come to you earlier on this. You know, it's just people get, you know, it's been discussed in such depth for such a long time. I think people just overlook the fact that there are others that would be interested or could be involved and they weren't. You know, as you heard, I mean, it's been, you know, not a year, but close to it.
Thank you. Just a follow-up comment.
I mean, it's public, you know, there's public disclosure. It's on the website. There've been public meetings. Infrastructure has held meetings. Now, I'm not saying that you should have been aware of that, but.
And I just want to be clear, it's been very clear to me that the infrastructure committee is the committee that has design control over this. So they approved the design and plan back at their January meeting. So I just want to be clear on that point.
So with the word alterations and you know, authority over alterations, that to me would indicate that we would have some role in design. And I may be wrong, I'm new to this seat, but in the language of our, what establishes our board and the authority that we have, it's my interpretation that on the alteration side, you know, we should be part of that process. And I don't want to conflate this with me not supporting this project, because I love this project. Like, I think it's going to be awesome. I think it's progress. But as far as what we're here to do, I've already expressed my view on it. And again, I could be wrong, but.
But I think what Mr. Cummings says is correct. If there was a failure, it was not Mr. Cummings. If you look at the way this was drafted by legal, you look at the resolution itself is in the packet. They say, I mean, they're basically saying that the legislation, they are saying, should be referred to the Board of Public Works for its review and approval. I mean, he's sort of following the playbook that he was given. Now, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying this wasn't a Cummings decision.
Sure.
In any event, yes, it would have been better to brief you earlier, no question. Now that it's just hard when, you know, like I've been looking at this for like so long, you know, it's like, doesn't everybody know about it? You know, maybe they don't, and maybe we should have, and we should have anticipated this earlier. Yes.
Oh.
Commissioner, or excuse me, Alderman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not here to fix any blame, but maybe a clarification. As chairman on the Committee of Infrastructure, I've held many joint different committee meetings, one on barriers, one on the schools. I'm getting quite used to herding cats. We're doing all right. But the thing is, I don't know how to explain this. There was no intention to slight this particular board. But keep in mind, this is only part of the process. The board clarified too, even the Committee of Infrastructure does not have influence on the Budget Committee. And this has got to go through budget for them to, and so what we're talking about is on one little piece of the particular project. You can say what you want on the budget, but it will ultimately come up to the Budget Committee, which is under the perusal of the Board of Aldermen to make that particular decision. So this way to look at it may be an attempt to bring you up to speed with the projects. But your concerns to the chairman of infrastructure, to me personally, is duly noted. And I think I will work with Mr. Cummings in the future that if you want, I'd be more than happy to offer a chair of the Joint Committee of Infrastructure with the Board of Public Works again for items such as this that want to come up on the radar. But there was no real negative intention. So therefore, with that being said, let's look at the worthwhile of this particular project. Exactly what you, Commissioner Shea, has said. I mean, let's look at the goal. This is something that's got to enhance the city. So instead of get tied up in the schematics, I am willing to work to make the right Mayor Cooper in the future between the two boards. But I urge you to support this project and not get tangled up in the particular weeds. And we'll see if we can rectify that. And I'll speak to you, offline and work and come to a joint conclusion on this. Because I do believe when the boards do work together, we are better well served. So that will be the goal going forward. I can guarantee you that. So I urge your support. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Schoeneman.
Back to the resolution at hand. Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. You mentioned that the state was going to be chipping in $2 million of this $2,450,000? Or
No.
on
No.
top
In
of?
addition to.
In addition.
So this is actually a $4.5 million project?
Correct.
Okay. Can you tell me what the final project cost for the Performing Arts Center is up to right now? Roughly?
Budgeted at $25 million and it's on
25
budget.
million.
Yeah.
So this is another $5 million, $2.5 million of debt that we're adding on to what the taxpayers are going to have to bear in an economy that is quickly becoming very, very difficult. So I would have to say that I would not be in favor of doing something like this at this time.
If I may, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The money has been accommodated in our debt service plan, so this would be not an additional cost. It would be anticipated with our traditional debt service spending. It wouldn't be in addition to by any stretch. And I wouldn't want to commingle the Performing Arts Center project with the squaring off of the Walnut Street Oval or the streetscaping of the West Pearl Street. Those infrastructure improvements need to happen and can stand alone based on the current conditions. The oval and the street itself are in pretty dire shape. They don't even make ADA compliance, which is a big concern.
Back to the original point of we can do better when it comes to the Walnut Street Oval. There, we don't have anything other than that needs to be squared off. There's no design, there's no preliminary design, there's nothing. So, and the state will be participating, and if this is approved by the Board of Aldermen, we will begin to undertake design. But on that portion of the project, you pointed out we should have come to you earlier on what you see here. But on that portion of the project, we will correct the deficiency and keep you advised frequently about how the project is progressing and how the design is progressing.
I'll be happy to do that when we get to that point in the project. I know in other LPA projects, I've come before you prior to going to the infrastructure committee to take your input in. I'd be happy to do that with this project as well, and then bring it to the infrastructure committee for its approval.
Or we could do this joint
Or
committee.
do a joint committee, yeah.
Whatever is the desire, because I think the point is well taken. There was no means for sliding, and I'm not saying that there is, but yeah, whatever's the best. I think maybe the briefing might even be better, because not everybody catches the meetings and, you know, to see what we're doing. So, what you were saying, Director Cummings, yeah. Either way works.
I'll stop sharing screen now.
Any other comments? Yes,
So-
Commissioner Shea.
So to what so we have a rendering, which I think we probably did internally, right? The map and all that layout and everything looks similar style to other things that I've seen come out of engineering. Is there's design work like beyond that map? Am I incorrect in that assumption?
I'm not necessarily knowing what you're referring to, but I can tell you there's 100% design on the project.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you.
Mayor.
Commissioner Moriarty.
Right, so moving forward, I assume this may pass, but I would expect you would have somewhere in the future another motion to approve the project before the shovel is put into the ground.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Shea,
May I move the question?
you may.
Okay.
Moving the question means if this motion passes, debate is ended, and a vote should be taken, and this is a non-debatable motion. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes, which means we go to the vote, which, of the main point, the main question, which is to recommend final passage of resolution R2238. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. Thank you very much, Mr. Cummings.
Thank you.
And again, for Mr. Cummings, it wasn't his decision as to how to work through the bureaucracy here. It wasn't, it should have been done better, there's no question about that. So we'll do better in the future. Thank you for your corrections, I don't know, your input as to how we could do a better job. All right. Next is Solid Waste Department. Item A, Commissioner Lemon.
The motion is to approve the 3-year cooperative service agreement between the City of Nashua and the USDA Wildlife Management Service for a combined 3-year total not to exceed $317,428.91. Funding for this agreement is through Department 168 Solid Waste, Fund Solid Waste, Account Classification 53, Professional and Technical Services.
Jeff LaFleur, Superintendent of Solid Waste. This is the company that does all of our seagulls. They keep our seagulls off of our landfill during the day. They also take care of any vectors throughout the city. If there's any turkey vultures that land in any of the apartment complexes, he'll go scare those away for them. He'll take care of any rodents around the landfill, as like woodchucks that dig holes in our cap of our landfills, removes all of them. He also is working on taking care of some of the other birds that are around our landfill. Inside our garages, there's some sparrows that have been moving in. He takes care of those and scares those away. This is part of my DES permit that I have to do. We have to have this person or a person like him around doing this every day of the year that we're running trash in the landfill.
Questions, discussion? Commissioner Schoeneman.
Thank you. So this personnel compensation, $70,000, this is for one one staff member. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the next year, they're bumped up to 77,000 a year.
Correct.
And then the next year, $81,000 a year for one staff member.
Correct. It may change. This is a government position. They're a government employee, so if
Really?
if the increases are a little bit less, they'll charge us less.
Okay. So this is his or her salary for chasing away vermin from the landfill.
Yes, Jeff LaFleur, Superintendent Solid Waste. Yes, it's their salary, but it's also their liability. If they use guns on site, so if there's any accidents or anything that happen, they use pyrotechnics. So if there's any issues or any, God forbid, any accidents, it's their liability on them. They also help us fill out all of our permits that go to the state, to the New Hampshire Fish and Wildlife. So it's their salary, but they also do a lot of administrative and field work.
Thank you, Mr. LaFleur. I'm clearly in the wrong business.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next, we're at wastewater department. Item A, Commissioner Moriarty.
Move to approve the user warrants as presented.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item B, Commissioner Shea.
The motion is to approve the initial 6 months of fiscal year '23 purchase of polymer from Polydyne in Riceboro, Georgia, in the amount of $340,000. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater, Fund wastewater, account classification 61, supplies and materials.
Mr. Boucher.
Thank you, Dave Boucher, wastewater superintendent. So this is the purchase of chemical polymer that's used to aid in the drying and thickening of sludge at the wastewater facility. We have different companies come in and test their product against our sludge, and Polydyne has the best product out there for drying our sludge. So we'd like to go with them. I can answer any questions.
Anyone? Commissioner Lemon.
Didn't we vote on this last meeting?
That was to get us through the rest of the fiscal year of '22.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item C, Commissioner Shoneman.
I move to approve the purchase of the chemical sodium bisulfite in the amount of $77,000 from PVS Chemical Solutions. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater, Fund wastewater, account classification 61, supplies and materials.
Thank you. Dave Boucher, wastewater superintendent. Sodium bisulfite is a chemical we use to remove the residual chlorine before we discharge the treated wastewater to the river. We do participate in the Northeast Merrimack Valley Chemical Consortium, their bid process. PVS was the low bidder on that. It's the company that we're currently using and we've got no issues with, so we'd like to continue using them.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item D, Commissioner Lemon.
The motion is to approve the purchase of the chemical sodium hypochlorite in the amount of $355,000 from Borden and Remington of Fall River, Mass. Funding will be through Department 169 wastewater, Fund wastewater, account classification 61, supplies and materials.
Dave Boucher, wastewater superintendent. This is a chemical we use for disinfecting the wastewater after it's treated and before it's discharged to the Merrimack. Again, we volunteered, participated in that chemical consortium. They did the bid process, and Borden and Remington were the low bidders. It is the company we're currently using. We'd like to continue using them.
Anyone? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we have the Parks Department. Item A, Commissioner Moriarty.
Move to approve the purchase and installation of a central irrigation system from Corbett Incorporated of Concord, Mass. for the sum of $85,850. Funding will be through Department 177 Park and Recreation, Fund Capital, Activity, Central Irrigation Project.
Brian Conant, Superintendent of Parks and Recreation. The central irrigation project, once completed, will allow the department's irrigation systems throughout the city to be managed through software that will be web-based. This will allow changes to be made to the system through a PC, phone, or tablet. The software will also provide notifications regarding any problems that are occurring, such as leaks. The software will also be able to produce reports that show how well the systems are performing. This phase of the project will include the software and the installation of master valves, clock modules, and flow meters to the systems at Roby Park, Lions Field, Shady Lane, Charlotte Ave, Holman Stadium, Atherton Avenue, Artillery Lane, North Common, and Murray Field. The software communications at Mine Falls, Lincoln Park, Haynes Park, and Ledge Park will be upgraded from 3G to 5G. The system will save both employee hours and cut down on water usage. The water usage reduction is projected to be at least 25%. Central irrigation. Several vendors have been contacted about installing new controllers, master valves, flow meters. Given the fact that the locations of the controllers don't have access to Wi-Fi cable or an internet router, a vendor that has its own server has to be used. Communication to the server will be done through a cellular communication device, also supplied by the vendor. The only vendors that are capable of performing the job scope are Corbett Incorporated and Winterberry Irrigation, which are the two companies that bid on the work in 2018. Both companies were called by the superintendent in late March of this year, 2022, and both came to the city to discuss the job scope and specifications. Corbett Incorporated has provided a cost proposal to perform the job scope needed to complete the central irrigation, while Winterberry Irrigation still has not provided a cost proposal.
Discussion, questions? Commissioner Shea.
Do you have any projections? Is there a weather-controlled aspect to this, where if it rains, it automatically doesn't water? Is that?
If it rains out, we would be able to pull this up either on our desktop or our phone and shut it off. Currently, right now, we use weather sensors out in the field. Sometimes they don't work due to vandalism. They're usually battery operated, so if the battery goes bad, it doesn't work. This is really this is gonna enhance how much we can keep track of what we're doing out in the field.
Could you explore further, I know that's not really like what we're talking about right now, but could you explore further some manner of weather automation to tie into this system?
Currently, what we have in place is really the only option that we have, Commissioner.
Okay. Okay. I see potential opportunity with the deployment of something like that, and wonder to what extent that might be able to be added to this system. I understand that you can do it manually. Would there be an opportunity for expansion to do that in the future with the system?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Yeah, I've just this side anecdote. I've got this neat sprinkler that I picked up, and you control it with your smartphone. And every morning when it's due to water the lawn and it is forecast to rain that day, it says, hey, we're not gonna water the lawn today, do you want us to water it anyway? And I get to swipe it, and it's just fantastic. I'm very interested to see what that does to my water bills. And I imagine with such a vast array of fields, and the cost of water, it could be tens of thousands of dollars a year, or maybe thousands of dollars a year.
I would think so. I mean, currently, right now, with all the parks we have, Commissioner, if we were to go out and manually adjust the programs, which we have to do with the control stations at
Yeah.
these parks we're talking about, it would take us about 2 days to go through all of them. So just man hours alone, not even
Well, no.
taking in consideration the water usage,
Yeah.
we're going to be providing a substantial cost savings to our operation.
That's good. I'm just thinking down the line, if we are able to do the weather piece where it's not requiring the manual labor, and there are maybe 20% of the days that water is programmed and it doesn't water them, you know, there might be some potential for savings there.
Yep, I agree.
I might have a follow-up question, but I'll take a break.
Commissioner Schoeneman.
When I first saw the bottom line here, I thought, oh, that's a bit spendy, but when I saw the scope of the work, I actually started to think, that's not a bad deal. These things are expensive, and it is incredibly helpful to be able to just push a couple buttons and say, water this zone, don't water this zone. I think it's a really good thing, and good on you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I assume this is going to greatly improve the quality of the turf?
Yes, absolutely.
Commissioner Moriarty.
Superintendent, again, I love this whole concept. I was just wondering, moving forward, how about an annual maintenance fee from the company, or no? Is this just a one-shot deal, we buy it and that's it?
It's an excellent question, Commissioner. Because we're using a cellular communication device, we will incur a $1,200 fee per year on these. The first year is included in this, but moving forward, we'll have to pay $1,200 at each of these locations. But I do strongly believe that the cost savings in labor and water will outweigh that fee. So it's going to be roughly around $18,000, give or take.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Shea.
Noticeably absent from the list is Greeley Park. Do we have any irrigation at Greeley Park?
Currently, right now, the irrigation system at Greeley Park is not in great shape, and there's a lot of it that does not work, unfortunately.
In my observation, on the, never eat soggy waffles, on the west side of Greeley Park, there's kind of this natural flow of water that doesn't, so that side seems to do okay.
Yeah.
And there's some water buildup, and that's a separate issue. On the amphitheater side, I'm picturing vividly in my head photos of events from that space where it's just dust.
Yes.
On that hillside. And so, you have a comment, go ahead.
I do. A lot of that is is happening because of salt. We get a lot of salt runoff. If you've noticed at Greeley Park, there's no curbs. There's not really a lot of catch basins either. And when you have your thaws coming out of in the spring, a lot of, turf doesn't like salinity, salt, and that's a lot of what that's attributed to. So.
And my last comment, I know that turf control is like your strong suit, right?
Yes.
I would love to see a proposal at some point to, especially on that east side of Greeley by the amphitheater, come to us for irrigation and soil improvement, soil amendments to that hillside to get it into a condition where it can really be a nice place to sit and watch something.
Delighted to hear that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you have, what do you think it would cost to irrigate that area that Commissioner Shea is talking about?
Oh,
And is that an area where it doesn't work, or where?
There's a lot of it that's pretty old that doesn't work,
There's
Mr. Mayor.
nothing at all?
There's a lot of areas where there's no irrigation at all, and there's some areas on the Stonehouse side, really, of Greeley Park that are so old that it just doesn't work.
And do you have any estimate as to what it would cost to irrigate the field area that Commissioner Shea is asking about? Because
Yeah,
that is,
I mean, it really
the
all
grass there is fairly rough, you know,
Yep.
it's there, but
It's really based off the size. I don't want to throw numbers around. We'd have to go ahead and get the square footage, decide where we want to put it, and, you know, we could get a quote that reflects the square footage where we, you know, where we want to put the irrigation system, Mr.
all right.
Mayor.
So anyway, you're looking into that.
I will.
Great. All right. Anyone else comment on the pending motion, which is item A? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Item B, Commissioner Shea.
The motion is to approve the removal of 23 trees, pruning of 40 trees, and log removal at St. Andrews Park. Funding will be through Department 177, Park and Recreation Fund, Capital Activity, Citywide Playground Improvements.
Brian Conant, Superintendent of Parks and Recreation. This tree removal and pruning is needed to allow for a new playground to be installed at St. Andrews Park. The removal will allow for the playground footprint to fit appropriately within the park. The tree pruning is removing dead wood off of trees to create a safer environment around the perimeter of the playground. A meeting was held May 27th to look at the work site and answer questions. 4 companies were notified of the meeting. The meeting was attended by 2 companies. 2 cost proposals were received, with Pioneer Tree Services being the lowest cost proposal at $8,400.
Discussion?
Yeah.
Commissioner
Yeah,
Moriarty.
Superintendent, just remind me where St. Andrews Park is. I can't recollect.
Are you familiar with Matt Doobie Field, the Little League field?
Harris Road.
Harris Road.
Harris
Thank
Road.
you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Thank you.
Anyone else? Commissioner Shea.
To what extent, if at all, has this been discussed in the neighborhood? It's a lot of trees, and I wonder to what extent the neighbors are aware that this is coming.
You know, when we were out there, I had some retired people come and talk to me. Other than that, it hasn't been extensively discussed with the neighborhood. I know Alderman O'Brien is a very big advocate of this project.
Let me, so, may I speak? Lisa
Yes.
Photo, Director of Public Works.
Go ahead.
So when Brian first came to me and said that they were gonna remove 23 trees, I said, I wanna see this. So we went out and, about half of the trees need to be removed in order to be able to accommodate the playground. The other half are dead trees that are really dangerous, for either falling on a home or, falling, on, you know, residents. So half of those trees are, and this should have probably been done a long time ago, but at least half of those trees are dead trees. And, superintendent pointed that out to me. It was very clear that they were dead. So, so it does sound like a lot of trees, but at least half of them, need to come down because
They are hazardous,
they're
yes.
hazardous.
They are.
I know this is an odd question, but $8,400 to remove 23 trees seems really like a great deal to me, considering what my neighbors have paid to remove some, like 1 or 2 trees.
Yes.
Does the city get, I mean, it's just that was the bid?
That was the bid, yeah. Everybody, the 2 companies came, they had the trees marked, the trees to be pruned, the trees to be removed, and that was the number I received.
Do they do non-commercial work?
They do.
All right.
They do, they're local.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Schoeneman.
Just as a informational item, and I know that Mr. Conant has recently dealt with the same issue in the area of Sergeants Avenue Park. A lot of these trees are silver maples. There was a time, I've been told there was a time in our city's history where someone said, oh great, silver maples grow fast, they're beautiful, let's plant them. And they were planted widespread all over our city, but they don't have a long life. So we're getting to the point where a lot of our big mature silver maples are just, they've reached the end of their life. So this isn't, being mean to the trees. They're done. And for safety reasons, they need to be taken down.
Anyone else?
I just
Commissioner Lemon?
have one suggestion, which would be that Lauren drafts some kind of statement saying that, you know, these trees are dead, they need to go, so that people are clear.
Sure.
And put it on the Public Works or even, and copy it to the Nashua Civic Sounding Board to prevent controversy.
Yes, that's a good point. And we are having, in discussions with the ward alderman, Alderman Sullivan, about this as well. So I know that Alderman O'Brien is also very interested in this park. This is really the last park that, aside from the Greeley Playground, that really needs to be updated. It's, if you've been to St. Andrews, it's just horrible. So it needs some attention, and the residents have asked for this for a long time. So once we have the funding in place for the playground, then we'll be bringing that back to you. But right now, we just want to take the trees down in preparation for that.
Commissioner Shea?
Can you tell us about the playground? Is there a plan for that yet, or is this is in prep for that?
This is in prep for that. We've come up with a conceptual design, but we haven't, nothing's concrete yet, so that's why we haven't brought that to you yet.
Thank you.
It's subject to change depending upon funding.
This is true.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Engineering Department. Item A, Commissioner Schoeneman.
I move to approve the sewer service permits and fees as submitted.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item B, Commissioner Lemon.
The motion is to approve the award of the construction contract for the 2022 CIPP lining program to Kenyon Pipeline Inspection LLC of Queensbury, New York, in the amount of $1,412,170. Funding will be through Department 169 Wastewater, Fund, Wastewater Activity, Sewer Rehab.
Hello, Mr. Hudson.
Hello, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Dan Hudson, City Engineer. So as the board, I believe, is aware, through our sewer rehabilitation program, we do two types of work. One is we dig up pipes and replace them, very disruptive. Through this other part of the program, we video inspect through closed circuit television, sewer pipes, and if able, we line them with a liner, which basically creates a pipe inside a pipe. So this contract here is for the lining work. It's much more cost effective than the dig work, about 20 times less expensive. But this video work we do also finds those problems that we need to dig up. So the two go hand in hand. This is the lining one. Kenyon Pipeline Inspection, we're very familiar with them. They didn't win our last bid when we went out to bid last time, but before that, they had worked in the city for a couple of years, and we've had good luck with them.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We now have item C, Commissioner Moriarty.
I move to approve the engineering contract for the West Hollis Street corridor study with Hoya, Tanner and Associates, Inc. of Manchester, New Hampshire, in the amount of $188,772. Funding will be through Department Economic Development Fund, ARPA grant.
So again, Dan Hudson, City Engineer. This is a start of looking at West Hollis Street corridor. West Hollis Street corridor has been the point of discussion and concern for residents for a number of years. There's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of abutting streets. It's difficult to, get onto make your turns on and off the roadway at times. And there are some concerns about pedestrian safety. Unfortunately, there was a fatality that occurred on the street where a pedestrian was struck by a vehicle. So we need to look at providing safer bicycle and pedestrian accommodations along the corridor. Hoya Tanner is an engineering company that we selected through a request for qualifications for highway, bridge, traffic, and bicycle pedestrian infrastructure. So we've finally been able to identify some funding to do this corridor study and propose to award it to them.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. We next have item D. Commissioner Shea.
The motion is to approve the purchase of single Veriscam camera and associated equipment from Ocean State Signal of Smithfield, Rhode Island in an amount of $7,500 and approve its installation by Central Mass Signal LLC of Northborough, Massachusetts in an amount of $2,340. Funding for both items will be through the will be through the Amherst Street Traffic Corridor Mitigation Fund, Department 160, Admin Engineering Fund, Trust, Account Category 71, Equipment.
Thank you. That was a long motion, and I'm sorry for that, but I did want to try to accomplish a couple things in one motion here. We're seeking to replace loop detection on the Baldwin Street approach to Amherst Street. We've had trouble there with loops failing due to potholing, that sort of thing. So this motion is to procure a camera from Ocean State Signal and then to have Central Mass Signal install it so that we can do the vehicle detection via camera versus loop detection.
Anyone? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Motion passes. Item E, Commissioner Schoeneman.
I move to approve the use and occupancy agreement with 57 Factory Street LLC for placement of a dumpster in the Water Street right-of-way.
So this is a somewhat unique situation here. We received a request to place a dumpster in the right-of-way. The proposed location is basically under the Water Street Bridge, and it'd be against one of the piers there where currently there's parking, city parking that would be replaced by the dumpster. And with us tonight is Dennis Gleason, who can speak to this. He's the owner of 57 Factory Street and can speak to the need.
Hi, thanks for listening to me tonight. I have some pictures. Is it okay if I pass them out?
Just for clarity, could you introduce yourself and your address?
Yeah, my name is Dennis Gleason. I'm 17 Gregg Road here in Ash, New Hampshire, and I own the property at 57 Factory Street, downtown. We just put up the building, probably tore it down, put it back up over the past 5 years, and it's now a farm-to-table restaurant and a brewery. And our property goes out to the street in front, out to the street in back. We do share a little bit of a right-of-way with Smith, Weiss, and Shepherd, who are great neighbors, but no really space to put a dumpster. So right now we're carting it out every day, trying to pull it out by truck and then bringing it back to our property at 10 Groton Road, where then we put it into that dumpster. So it's really hard in the sense of that we have a lot of waste, and our grain right now, our spent grain and all the spent grain and all the breweries in Nashua go to our cows on 10 Groton Road. And we try to be good at recycling, and we try to take care of the property. So we approached the mayor's office, and we were working with Tim And they kind of came out, took a look at it, and they figured this would be the best space to put a dumpster and hopefully a recycling area also. So I can pass some pictures out if that helps, or?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm showing the location right underneath the bridge overpass. And I don't know exactly, it's not really Water Street, because Water Street goes above, but I guess it's off the parking. And then we show a recycling dumpster and a regular dumpster. And then I'm trying to show how we would cover it. The front of 57 Factory Street, the back of 7 Factory Street, and the back of Spitzweiss and Shepherd at 47 Factory Street. Again, putting a dumpster right next to our building would really take away from the parking lot. Bob Shepherd, they've been very good to us, so that's the only solution that we could come to working with the city. So I'd really appreciate it if you would consider it. Any questions or?
Questions, comments? Commissioner Schoeneman.
I'm still trying to figure out exactly where this is. I've been trying to figure out where exactly this is, but my main concern is, are the trash trucks gonna be able to get in there?
Yes, we
and empty
actually
them?
had Waste Management come out and take a look at it.
Measure the
once they-
trucks and measure the bridge?
Yes. Well, I don't know if they said they could easily do it.
Okay.
I didn't ask if they measured. I'm assuming.
Okay.
Commissioner Shea.
So I understand that right now that space is used for parking by the residents at Delana's house, is that right?
Yes, and the city said they'd try to relocate some parking for them. That's my understanding anyway.
Do we have, I'm generally supportive of trying to find accommodations for a dumpster for you. I'm curious to know to what extent the city has discussed it with Delana's house and with Clock Tower Place. I would fathom it's possible that Clock Tower Place might not be enthused to have a dumpster greeting folks as they walk out. And I'm at first I was thinking it was gonna be the parking immediately under, kind of like next to where the gentleman said didn't smoke.
Right.
So I'm glad to see that it's not there, because that would just be too close for comfort, for their simple pleasures. And, but yeah, I'd be curious to know to what extent that's been discussed with the abutters.
To be honest, I don't know that.
Mr. Hudson, do you have anything to add on that question?
I don't know the answer to that either. This kind of originated, as was discussed, through Director Cummings. From a Public Works perspective, engineering was involved just in reviewing the location and how it might impact or not impact traffic flow and that sort of thing. We did push back initially because, we generally, aren't in favor of placing dumpsters in the right of way, but this is a situation where this building for this site completely fills their site. We as was described, we did ask that they look for other locations, and to my knowledge, that was attempted with Mr. Gleason and Director Cummings.
Okay. Commissioner Shea.
My question is for Mr. Hudson. Would there be any more suitable locations? I understand that a lot of the materials that come out of there probably come out of that lower level. But would there be anything on the Factory Street side, in one of the lots there, where we could put a neat, kind of like chain link fence with the, or something to compartmentalize it so it's not an eyesore? And also make it so that it's not like immediately next to the entrance to Clock Tower or that kind of heavily used parking?
I don't know. I mean, I think on Factory Street, the location you're talking about will be across the street from this side of the street. I believe this is on the north side of Factory Street, so I don't think there's any space currently. Normally, there's 2 travel lanes and the sidewalk. There's no parking on the business side. Right now, through the extended outdoor dining, there is parking on the adjacent to 57 Factory Street. But there really isn't, to my knowledge, a footprint on Factory Street in close proximity. So then looking down, on Water Street, the original proposal was, kind of on the, against the other abutment. But we felt that would constrict traffic flow through to Clock Tower Place. And then other than that, I'm not sure what other locations were looked at. It is a tight area down there. There's a lot of parking, but a bunch of it's private parking, some of it's city parking. So I'm not sure the specifics of what's possible. I know Director Cummings did mention some spots were permitted and weren't able to be reassigned, but this location, I believe he thought the parking could be reassigned.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Okay. It's under a bridge. You're gonna put up a little fence, and it's close. I mean, making your employees have to drag the trash out to some distant location in the middle of the city, in the middle of the night, doesn't seem very safe. So I think this is a really good solution for a space that that maybe doesn't have a lot of use otherwise. And I've been hearing such good things about this place, this business, that I think that it would be a very good gesture to allow them this small convenience.
Commissioner Moriarty.
Mr. Hudson, do you know, is there a light on that bridge or no? Is it lit?
I believe it is, but I
Okay.
can't say for sure. And in the lead-in here, I mean, there is a draft use and occupancy agreement, so this will be subject to that. The city retains the right, I believe, at any time to rescind the approval, should we come to have concerns. And that use and occupancy agreement will need to be reviewed and approved by corporate counsel, should you decide to approve this.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and although as liaison, but my previous employment, as you know, was on the fire department. Have they been briefed of this? Because I know that is somewhat a fire lane, and as you know, there's supposed to be so much clearance for the fire truck. I know there is a bridge involved, the wooden plank one that I'm talking about, where the old paddle used to be, but have they signed off is what I'm...
I can't answer to that. I didn't have any communication with them. What I would say is the area that the dumpsters proposed to be placed is currently parking. So the area that cars would occupy is the same area that dumpsters would occupy. That width concern was why we didn't want it on the other side of the thruway. If you were going towards Clock Tower from the parking lots. We didn't want it on the right side for that reason, because that would have constricted flow through there. But no, I didn't have any discussions with fire. I'm not sure if Mr. Cummings did or if Mr. Gleason did.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor? I mean, it's only as a point, I hate to, whatever the board decides, but on the resolution of this, I would hate to have another agency come in at the 11th hour. We just got through discussing this, and then come in with a point of view that may not be to what the petitioner wants.
Maybe perhaps a condition that fire be consulted. I don't know. Just throwing it out there. Again, this isn't really we're trying to facilitate this discussion, but this is a private request.
Thank you.
Commissioner Shea.
So, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a dumpster fire behind Daryl's. I don't know if you recall that. I think somebody lit a tire on fire inside that dumpster, and it burned for quite some time. So the idea of it being located immediately under the wooden bridge is a little concerning. The way that it's rendered, without a privacy fence and more of just like a simple fence to control access, I'd like to see wherever it be located, because this is part of the riverfront area and we're really trying to get people down there to enjoy things. And your business is doing an amazing job of being a part of that. I just want to take a step back. I bartended in there when it was Timber Grill. The extent
I remember that.
The extent to which you improved that space and created decks and it's everything that it needs to be. And you've done such an amazing job. And I know that it was not an easy undertaking, and it was a big process for you and your family, so thank you for that. But I'll get back to it. So I wherever it's located, I'd really like to see a privacy style fence, which I think is fairly typical for this kind of deployment of a dumpster in a populated, well-traveled area. I would really like to see that Clock Tower Place and Delena's house have a part of the discussion as to where this is placed. I just don't want to hear that residents, a couple weeks from now are, not a couple weeks from, but whenever this goes in, I don't want to hear that residents are upset about it, and we have to revisit the issue. I'd like to make sure that we get it right the first time. Having it beyond that abutment is probably not feasible, right? Because the trucks wouldn't be able to get access in there, is that right?
On the other side, I think it was access. They were afraid of coming around that vehicles would potentially go into it. So that's why they moved it across to the other side.
Okay. And then I have a question for Engineer Hudson. The road behind Clock Tower Place, is that property of Clock Tower Place?
Is it all along the river?
Yes.
Yes, I believe it is, and I mean, there is a river walk plan there, so I believe we have some rights, or will have some rights.
Or they're giving us the easement?
Yeah.
I think they own it, but there's a public easement.
Yeah.
At least for walking.
Okay. I know that Clock Tower Place has a number of dumpsters out behind the building, which is not, when you're considering the fact that you're taking the trash out and dealing with that, the 150, 250 foot roll to the dumpster, if it were to be co-located with some of where those dumpsters are, that might be more tenable to Clock Tower. Clock Tower may not even have an objection to this. They may be supportive of it. I would just like, for me personally, I would like to know that they are okay with this. And the abutters is really my primary concern about it. I'd like to find a solution. I just want to know that the neighbors are okay with it.
I just had a sidebar, Mr. Gleason. Perhaps we table this until, the next meeting, and then we can have those discussions with fire and reach out to Clock Tower and get their input. Perhaps show the screening that you're considering or requesting.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that's a good suggestion, Engineer Hudson. The only thing I would suggest is, I'm going to try to get a hold of Director Cummings to see if those discussions have already taken place. If they have, maybe we can just move this forward this evening. So I will try to do that. Maybe, Mayor, we could move on to the next while I try to do that.
All right, why don't we, without objection, we will just come back to this item. The next one is item F, Commissioner Lemon.
To approve the Atherton Park improvements plan.
Dan Hudson, city engineer, so this is a very short motion, but what's desired and planned is to convert the existing softball field and baseball field at Atherton Park into soccer fields, seven versus seven soccer fields, so, smaller than full soccer fields. And to, actually, Diane, I think Diane's on and can pull up the plan that I'm speaking to here. And then to also provide a parking lot, so that's the existing conditions. It shows the softball field on the left, baseball field on the right, and a basketball court in the dark gray there. Next slide, Diane. And this is what the proposal is. So it would be to create two soccer fields as noted, 7v7. They're running top to bottom on the screen here to irrigate those fields so they can be kept in good condition. There's an existing irrigation shed because these fields used to be flooded, I understand, for skating in the winter. That would need to be relocated. I'd like to provide a playground, although I'm not sure that's quite in the budget right now, but we're looking into that. And then to provide a basketball court to replace the one that's in the way of what you see as a parking lot. There's been a lot of historic complaints in this neighborhood about parking along the street. Parking is not allowed, but when there's events in this park, people do park on the street. So the part of the plan is to provide some off-street parking for the park. And then there's some parallel spaces along Atherton Ave as well shown. There's some large trees along Atherton Ave. We don't want to disturb those. There is one tree in alignment with the entry to the parking lot, which is an invasive species, which we would plan to cut. And other than that, it's trying to construct what's shown on the plan here. The plan is to construct this with city forces, street department, and parks department. And we did take this to the planning board for their input and received conditional approval. Perhaps we should come here first, and I apologize for that, the order of that, but we're not obligated, obviously, to construct it unless you agree that this is an approach we should take. So with that, I'd be happy to address any questions and/or Park Superintendent Conant could address any questions as well.
Commissioner Shoneman?
I think you answered the question already, but you said the funding was going to come through parks and engineering and the other funds.
Yeah,
You already have a plan for the funding.
We have a plan for the funding. Like I said, the playground is the piece that we don't currently have funded. But the rest of the work, we believe, we can accomplish with the existing funding we have. The engineering's been done in-house, and the construction will be done with city forces primarily. So yeah, it's kind of an in-house design build project.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Commissioner Lemon?
How does the ward alderman feel about this? I know that Atherton Park has been kind of underused in some ways. So has the neighborhood been consulted? Are they happy about it?
So the neighborhood, the abutters were direct mailed as part of the planning board process. We had some abutters come out. The biggest point of contention was the parking lot. About half of them wanted it, about half of them didn't. They asked us to talk to the Baptist church to see if we could work any parking arrangements with them. I see that kind of as problematic because, when they're having activities, the park's having activities as well. And also BAE has parking lots in, reasonably close walking proximity, but not exactly close. That was kind of the feedback we got. There was some of the slopes along the houses where it appears the land was filled over time. Some of that has some asbestos fill. Annually, we go out and we walk the slopes and remove any asbestos pieces that we find poking out of the slope. But no, I think generally the feedback was positive. The neighborhood supported park improvements. It was really just the parking and whether we need it or not. I mean, we're trying to provide as much parking as we can. It still may not be quite sufficient for the number of people that'll be at the park, but at all times. But we will be able to provide a couple of handicap spots in the lot, and then parking for at least around 30 vehicles or so.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? Commissioner Schoeneman?
Yes, is that a new catch basin that you'll be installing for drainage, or is that existing?
No, it's a good question. It is a new leaching catch basin, so it won't, this area doesn't outlet to any other drainage pipes. It's kind of a low-lying area. This catch basin, has a grate, water goes in, and then it can leach out into a stone bed. It's just trying to create a faster way for groundwater to get, water to get into the ground. So that's what that is.
Sounds like a good idea.
Commissioner Shea?
Can you speak to why parking's not allowed on Atherton Ave?
I just believe it's the width of the street, and but I can't specifically speak to the history of that or anything. I do know that, I've heard complaints that when people do park there, when the park is busy, it's very constricted in width getting through there, and there's been concerns about safety with that.
Is there concerns about safety, or is there concerns about people being impeded by having to drive 5 miles per hour through a dense residential neighborhood where children are playing? Is a question that doesn't need to be answered. But
Thank you.
I share the reservations about the parking lot. But it sounds like there was discussion with the neighborhood, and this was split, and it was determined that this was maybe the best solution, and there's a lot of thought that's gone into this. So I don't know that I would propose to get rid of it, but I just want to express that I share that concern about it. I think it's a lot of great green space, and I think it is underused. And I have to wonder what 2 7x7 soccer games happening at the same time would look like in comparison to one baseball game. How many people are on when you have the bench in baseball? I don't know about sports. Like how many people are on the field in baseball?
9.
9? Okay.
Yes.
And then on the bench you might have like 16 to 20 people per team. Is that about right?
Correct.
16, 20, so you get 20, so you got maybe 40, you got 7 and 7, although there's people on the bench in soccer too, so I don't know, that's a tough thing. I just wonder if there's really gonna be that much more of a need for parking with this use over what's happening there now. Was that discussed to much of an extent?
We did kind of the same back of the envelope type calculation that you did, and I not knowing exactly, I believe the uses will be similar. I think the parking was more to address the existing need, which will continue, especially with soccer, which is probably more popular right now than baseball. So it'll probably be more heavily utilized despite the team numbers. Would be my expectation.
And then I have one more thing. Would it be possible for this site to be used as a lacrosse field, or would that require some additional safety considerations as far as the balls and the windows nearby and all of that stuff?
I'd defer that question to the park superintendent.
I think it would depend on the age. I don't think this field is, I'll have to look into that. Off the top of my head, I think this field would be long enough for some lacrosse age groups to use and not long enough for others. just like it is for soccer currently right now. The 7-on-7 would really be for youth. This isn't long enough for high school regulation or anything like that, so I believe that's the correct answer.
Thank you. It's not necessarily germane to this, but on the topic of lacrosse, I got a call from a constituent who was interested in seeing us invest more attention to that sport and creating opportunities for fields and play space for that, which I thought was a fair observation on his part, that we're not doing enough to support that sport, especially where it's a sport where there's a lot of opportunity for scholarships, and it's just another way for kids to get out there and play. So just airing my thoughts, I'd like us to look more at what we can do. We've attended a lot to soccer, and I understand that soccer is popular. We've attended a lot to baseball, and I think that baseball has a more distant and entrenched level of support in the community, so that kind of feeds itself and gets the support that it needs. But whether it's here or elsewhere, I'd like us to look more at what we can do to support lacrosse players. Thank you.
And Commissioner Lemon brought that to my attention, and we're working on that now. So I know that Lauren Byers and Jeff DeSalvo were discussing that.
That's
and
great.
We'll be working on that. So.
Thank you so much.
So the pending motion is to approve. Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, two things. We could go back, we have a little bit more information regarding the 57 Factory Street request. The request was that, the answer, the information is that there was an attempt to contact Delanus. They did call Delanus, but they didn't get an answer. No response. Nothing with Clock Tower. I think it's a lot closer to Delanus. That's probably the reason for that. We could approve it subject to the director being satisfied that Delanus and Clock Tower are okay with the location. That's a possibility. The second item is, we're being told.
Excuse me, I just received word from Director Cummings that Clock Tower is all set, that he just spoke with them.
So Clock Tower is all right. It's not really close to Clock Tower, so that I don't, it's not a surprise. So we could approve it subject to the director being satisfied that Delanus House is okay with it. That's a possibility. Commissioner Moriarty.
Mayor, would it be possible to approve it contingent upon fire department approval?
And we could do that as well, yes. Yes. Both. So that could be a motion. Commissioner Shea.
I am good with that. I think that as long as that conversation has been had with all those parties, I'm happy with it. The one thing I would request be adjusted would be the use of some manner of privacy fencing that is completely occlusive and taller than the height of the dumpsters, so that they are not visible from the Riverwalk.
And Mr. Gleason, did you hear that?
Yes.
And do you have any issue with that?
None.
All right, well, I think the motion made by Commissioner Moriarty is to approve subject to the director photo being satisfied that the fire department and Delanus House are approving, not objecting to this idea.
Okay.
And with the privacy fence Any
Is that the-
discussion?
oh, sorry, is that the fire marshal I would talk to?
Well, who's going to initiate?
I
We'll
can
sort of
I can
facilitate the
facilitate
Thank
that
you.
for you.
Thank you.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Now, this other item that has come up, you recall that we normally meet upstairs, obviously you recall that. The reason we had to move down here is there's technical problems up there with the amplification. There's a meeting after this here. Now, of course, we didn't plan for this because, we didn't know the system upstairs wasn't gonna be working. They're saying that they need us to finish up by 6 o'clock, right?
Yes,
The
but
video people.
we're trying to get to 6:30, but I
They're
haven't
saying
heard, I
6
haven't
or
heard
6?
yet.
They're
They
saying,
had asked us to wrap up around 6. But I'm trying to push that to 6:30,
Yeah, I
but
think
I
there's
don't have.
budget at 7.
Yeah,
all right, well, let's go on to, we could, at some point, if we don't reach everything, suspend items till the next meeting. But why don't we take some more items and see what happens?
Quick question for,
Yes, Commissioner, or yes, Mr. Hudson.
question for the director. Director, would you like to hold item G and skip to
yes,
H and I?
yes, please.
Okay.
So G is gonna be held, we're skipping to what, H?
H, yes, please.
All right. Item H, Commissioner Lemon.
The motion is to establish the Assistant Construction Engineer position and create a DPW Permits Coordinator position in the City Engineering Department. Funding will be through Department 160 Admin/Engineering Fund, General Fund, Account Classification, Wages, Full-Time Department 169 Wastewater Fund, Wastewater Account Classification, Wages, Full-Time.
So again, Dan Hudson, City Engineer. So I think the description is fairly self-explanatory. I just would say that we have an Assistant Construction Engineer position, which we've had vacant for almost a year. Really haven't had much interest or qualified candidates. That position did some engineering duties related to construction. So what the proposal is to create a permits coordinator position. Engineering does a lot of permitting, anytime anybody excavates in the right of way, you need a permit. You want to encumber the right of way, because you're going to block it up because you're cutting trees or anything like that, comes through engineering for permitting. Currently, those permitting efforts are being completed by our staff engineers. So the thought here is that we create a dedicated position to permitting, which is certainly a full-time position, and then take those duties off our staff engineers so they can do more traditional engineering work in support of our senior staff engineers. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item I, informational, street opening permits. Anybody have any questions on that? I don't see anything. Thank you, Mr. Hudson.
Thank you.
We're now on to administration. Commissioner Moriarty.
The motion is to consider the request from resident Denise Muchali of 611 Midhurst Road to speak for up to 15 minutes during public comment on July 28, 2022 at the Board of Public Works meeting.
All right, discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Wait.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yeah.
may,
What?
I think,
Go ahead, Mr. O'Brien.
just for consideration, we on the Board of Aldermen have public comment, and it's limited to 3 minutes. Unless somebody is coming in to testify, and then they allowed to not only either stand at the podium, but if you notice the automatic meetings, we allow them to sit. The only thing that I'm going to caution you with this particular is what one board does has to be reflective to the whole municipality. So therefore, I would recommend consulting legal, because would your agreement to this for somebody coming in and not speaking within the 3 minutes, what would happen in the case somebody says, well, they did it at the Board of Public Works, I can do it at the Board of Aldermen. So there should be some legitimate consistency. So I wanted you to, I only say this as a point of caution to take under consideration. And maybe the best way is probably to get better legal advice than I'm giving you at this moment. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Also, it seems like the videographers are very concerned about going beyond 6 o'clock. Commissioner Shoneman.
Very quickly, I would like to know if the 3-minute rule is a legal rule, or is that something that was adopted without any kind of official legal statute? I think if a member of the public, if a taxpayer wants to be heard 15 minutes out of one meeting, she's done her due diligence to ask for it. I don't think it's a big onerous request. I don't think it's going to have massive repercussions through the city government. I say let her speak.
Well, this is why, Mr. Mayor, if I may, and to be brief, because I understand the videographer, but from my understanding, there is no state law that says the public has to speak, per se. And, but we allow it on the Board of Aldermen as a courtesy. So this particular petitioner is asking for the courtesy. My only point is consistency. So, like I say, best to probably refer it to a legal authority.
Well, I don't think there's a legal dimension here. I mean, it could be 3 minutes, it could be 1 minute, it could be an hour. I mean, a board can decide whatever they want on this. It could be unlimited, but the decision we've made is 3 minutes. Now, they're really, really pressing for us to finish up. Anyone have anything further to say on this item? Commissioner Shea.
I would just say that there, under this example, there's really no extenuating circumstances, and the resident could certainly and has communicated extensively their position on the issue with us. I would be concerned as far as our process and what we have generally allowed for with the fact of approving this, creating, you know, who are we arbitering? Who are we deciding gets to speak for 15 minutes and gets to speak for 3 minutes? It is my feeling that if we are going to, you know, have a standard, we should stick to that. I understand that there was a proposal and that was an item before us that was more than 3 minutes for this project initially last session. And that's something that the board was considering. You know, I would not support this just for the simple fact of I don't want to be deciding who and who doesn't speak for 15 minutes on an ongoing basis. I think that doesn't serve us well. The sentiment on this from the resident has been well taken.
Anything further? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Nay.
Motion fails. All right, now I think we, what? I think in deference to our videographers who work very hard, thank you, Jeff, sorry about the disturbance. Again, we would have been upstairs had there not been technical problems up there, but in deference to them, we should finish up, I believe. So without objection, we will go to the non-public session because the director says there are some hires she would like to complete, get approved for, and not wait another month. Commissioner Moriarty.
I then move by roll call that the board go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91-A3, Roman numeral 2B, the hiring of any person as a public employee.
And is that to be by roll call?
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Donches?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Commissioner Shea?
Yes.
Commissioner Lemon?
Yes.
Now we are going, Jeff, into non-public session. We're going to finish this up quickly. Motion passes. We are now in open session. Jeff, I don't know if you're still there or we're trying to, oh, there, okay. I think you put us back on. Commissioner Moriarty.
I move by roll call to seal the minutes of the Board of Public Works Personnel Non-Public Meeting of June 16th, 2022, until such time as the majority of the board votes that the purpose of the confidentiality will no longer be served.
All right?
Mayor Donches?
Yes.
Commissioner Moriarty?
Yes.
Commissioner Shoneman?
Yes.
Commissioner Shea?
Yes.
Commissioner Lemon?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Moriarty.
Are we adjourning? Motion to adjourn?
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the meeting is adjourned at 6:11 PM. Sorry, Jeff, for the overrun.